The questions: what the bike will be used for, how much luggage do I carry, will I travel alone or with passenger? If you ask yourself these three questions and if you have the honest answers, you will be able to make the necessary modifications. Based on the answers, you can make some modifications, otherwise they will be pointless. The topic that I'm going to discuss today, guys, is the necessary off-road modifications for adventure motorcycles. I'm sure that each and every one of you got a lot of things to say on this topic, and that's why I believe that we all together will make something nice and useful for everyone who is going to watch the stream after that. Alright, I'm gonna start it now slowly and we'll see where we can get. The usual advice that you can hear from people is that oh, Ogi, how are you, man? Watching from Elhovo. We have a new member, Ogi, Bulgarian guy from Elhovo. Ogi, как си? Okay, so the usual advice from people is that if you plan an adventure trip, you definitely need to make some modifications. But guys, I'm not so sure about it. All good, Ogi. Great, great. Ogi, thank you very much for the support that you're providing on the channel. This help is highly appreciated. I hope that you'll find some useful information here on the chat, on the streams, on the channel in general, and it will be beneficial to you. Alright, so the usual advice is that if you plan an adventure trip, you definitely need to make modifications, but I am not so sure about it. As usual, I will ask you to see the things from a different angle, not from the standard point of view that everyone will suggest. Everyone will say, yeah, if you need to go to some kind of adventures, you definitely need to make modifications, you need to buy this and that. Oh, slow down a little bit. You don't actually need all of these things. Instead of listing items that might or might not help you, I will ask you to think a little bit about it on this topic. Don't be that naive and believe in everything that you can see on the internet. You don't need to trust anyone, don't trust me either. You have to test everything by yourself. This is the point of everything that I do. I can only give you my point of view, my experience, or what is worked for me, but it could be completely different for you. So what is good for one might be a nightmare for another. I'm sure that you have heard this phrase before. So when someone said, oh, you have to do this and that modification because it works very well for me. Yes, it was working very well for him, but it doesn't mean that it's going to work very well for you as well. Because the motorcycle might be different, the riding styles might be different, the trips that you or someone else makes might be different, and all of this is something that you have to have in mind before you even start with your modifications. In my opinion, all of this is like a modern hype, and unfortunately many will buy it. Many will decide to make all of these adventure modifications until they convert their motorcycles like a Christmas trees. Especially if they plan to jump into this adventure world, when usually people riding motorcycles just on the road, they are not so focused on these modifications. But when they decided finally to make some kind of adventure trip or to jump into this adventure world, they believe that they need to do so many different modifications that they already got. Because it will be adventure, you have to do this or that, or many idiots decisions that could be taken. It's like an urge to buy things, or the necessity to buy some kind of adventure gadgets and implement it on your motorcycle, because without it, you cannot make it. Of course, most of these things are very expensive. And thinking that without it you cannot make it, or this is what the market said. And if you open now YouTube and type just modifications for adventure motorcycle, you will see thousands of videos with many different ideas, and everyone present their point of view, and everyone show that this is right, this is correct, this is what you need is this. You need hard luggage, you need soft luggage, you have to be heavy, you have to be light, and so many different opinions, and all of this is like a madness. So how to find the right decision? It's a good question, isn't it? So what I will do, instead of, as I said, telling you what to buy, the advice that I can give you is to be honest with yourself and ask yourself a few questions. And the first question is going to be what the bike will be used for. So you bought this motorcycle, it doesn't matter what kind of model it is, but you bought it for your trips. And you know very well for what you're going to use it, what kind of trips are you going to do it. This is the first question that you have to ask yourself. What the bike will be used for. And the second question is going to be how much luggage do I carry? Because you know very well how much luggage you have, how heavy or light it is. And the third question that you have to ask yourself is, will I travel alone or with passenger? Three simple questions. What the bike will be used for, how much luggage do I carry, and will I travel alone or with a passenger? Why, dear guy? I like that saying once a heard it's made by Turate, you don't need it. Uh, Unfortunately, it's not only Turate. There are so many overpriced and overhyped companies that produce things that most of these things I have seen by myself. Some of them I even bought during my travel days, just to realize that they are not what they have been explained or what I have been told. It's just completely different. Alexander Marek. Hello, Alexander. Where are you from? A new member here. You came a little bit late, we already start, but don't worry about it. On Tuesday, you'll be able to see the stream from the beginning. Anyway, so the questions: what the bike will be used for, how much luggage do I carry, will I travel alone or with passenger? If you ask yourself these three questions and if you have the honest answers, you will be able to make the necessary modifications. Based on the answers, you can make some modifications. Otherwise, they will be pointless. So, without asking yourself these questions, everything you do on your motorcycle is going to be pointless. Let me give you a few examples why. If you don't plan to leave the asphalt, the mods will be different, the modifications will be different than the modifications that you have to do if you plan only dirt roads or off-road trips, right? Alexander, basically most of the motorcycle gear is overpriced. I'm fairly new to this hobby and this was not a set conclusion. Yeah, absolutely. You can find very easy this because some of these brands, especially the top brands that produce this like Turatech is on the market for many years. And even a small gadgets, metal guards like this to protect your brake reservoir will cost you like 100 euros for what? Everything is just overpriced because it's a adventure modification for expensive motorcycles. Yeah, it is what it is. So, based on the answers of the questions that I just mentioned, you can make some modifications, otherwise they will be pointless. And let me give you a few examples why. If you don't plan to leave the asphalt roads, the modifications will be different than if you plan to stay only on the dirt roads, if you understand what I mean. It is pointless to reduce the weight if you carry a lot of luggage, for example. So what is the point to pay for a lot of expensive modifications that will reduce your weight, the weight of your motorcycle, like a titanium exhaust or titanium bush plate or any kind of different exhaust to drop weight, to cut your tail and make many different modifications to shave some weight from your motorcycle, and in the end of everything to load it with a lot of luggage. So it is absolutely pointless. Let me give you another one example that happened recently with a friend of mine. He bought an old motorcycle, DR 650, and this motorcycle came with hard panniers and a lot of adventure stuff on it. Anyway, the other day my friend was in the garage and he was trying to make the motorcycle lighter by changing the exhaust, because the original exhaust of the DR is heavy. You know very well that it's heavy. It's a big pipe, heavy pipe with some kind of catalytic converter inside. And my friend was trying to replace this exhaust with another one exhaust, which is probably around 2 kilograms lighter. And this, when you watch it at the beginning, was a good decision to make the motorcycle lighter. But on the same motorcycle, on the rear side, he has this metal racks for hard panniers. And on top of this metal racks, he has one rack for the top box. On the top of this rack, he has another one rack, another metal rack for a big duffel bag on the top. And when I asked him, why don't you make all of these racks? Why don't you remove all of these racks? Because here with the racks and with these two plates on the top, you have at least, in my opinion, 7-8 kilograms. Instead of making all of these changes with the exhaust. If you really want to change the exhaust, change it, but remove these racks as well. Do you plan to carry hard panniers? And he said, no, I don't plan to carry hard panniers, but they are good here for protection if I fell on the side or something like that. I don't know, I might remove it later. And I asked him again, okay, so you try to shave 2 kilograms of your exhaust, but you prefer to keep this 8 or 10 kilograms on the tail of your motorcycle all the time. And he was so confused, but even after I tried to convince him, and not only me, a few people that were there, he still made the conversion, changed the exhaust, but did not remove the racks. So this is the point. When you have to think everything in advance. It is pointless to remove weight and put another weight on the top, or to remove something and leave another, which you don't really need. So another way that is going to, all of the modifications could be pointless if you plan some hardcore adventure modifications for serious off-road, and if you have a passenger. What is the point to make the hardcore off-road modifications like a high mudguard, try to make your motorcycle as light as possible, big bush plate, handguards, protection and everything, because you plan to make a lot of off-road. And then you start riding with a passenger. Everyone who ever been on a motorcycle on the dirt roads will tell you that on the dirt roads with passengers, you can't make much. You can just go if it's necessary to cross a path or something like that, but it's not something that you'll enjoy. The main reason is because you cannot stand on the pegs. If you cannot stand on the pegs, it's not going to be pleasure. So all of this is going to be pointless if you don't answer correctly on the questions that I said. What the bike will be used for. If you know that the bikes will be used mostly for off-road, mostly for dirt roads, mostly for test roads, so this kind of adventures, you have to make it as light as possible, and you don't need all of that crap that you already put on it. If you know that you will carry a lot of luggage, let's say 50-60 kilograms, what is the point to make your motorcycle lighter? There's no point at all. And if you travel with passenger, again, there is no point to try to make the motorcycle lighter because you're heavy anyway. You have a passenger. And when you have the clothes for yourself and the passenger, it doesn't matter how much you like it, you cannot be very light. So, as I said, based on the answers, you can make some modifications, otherwise they will be pointless. And I just told you why. So guys, just to let you know, when I finish everything, I will give you enough time if you have any questions, if you want to complete something or to ask me something. So bear with me now to finish everything, and then we can discuss again the questions that you might have. So my advice, before any modifications, give yourself enough time with the bike, the new bike that you just bought and plan to make modifications, and only then you can make some changes. For example, I bought my Tenere 2 years ago, and 2 years ago I went last year, so the year before that I went on trip around Europe. And on the trip to Europe, I've got just a little bit changes or modifications that I have made before I start traveling around Europe. Actually, my trip to Europe was like a test ride with my Tenere, the first real experience with the Tenere on a real trip. So to know each other better, we have to travel together, if you understand what I mean. So most of the serious modifications that I have made with my Tenere later, like exhausts, suspension and stuff like that, I made it after more than 20,000 kilometers. So I really needed these 20,000 kilometers to understand the bike, how it works, how it reacts, do I need some changes or not. All of this time was necessary to know exactly what I need. So Before any modification, give yourself enough time with the bike that you plan to modify. After that, you can decide what you really need. Now I will list a few modifications that will be necessary and will cost you nothing or just a little bit. And these modifications are something that will really help you on long term. Number one is to have a proper handlebar, at least 28 millimeters. Well, most of the bikes now coming with 28 millimeters, but if you have an old machine like Suzuki DR650 or Honda Africa Twin or any kind of different motorcycles like Transalp or stuff like that, they will be with 22 millimeters handlebar. It's not that it's wrong, it's not wrong, but when you have a nice and stable and fat handlebar, 28 millimeters, you'll have a much better connection with your front wheel, and the feedback from the front wheel will be really nice to have with this handlebar. So a proper handlebar, it's not going to be that expensive. You can buy it even second hand, but even if you buy it new, something from a rental will cost you like 50-60 euros, and you will feel your motorcycle like completely a different type of bike just because of the handlebar. And then you have to make for yourself a proper seating position, which is mean you should have a straight back like this, something like this, straight back, not like that. You have to be like this. Your arms also need to be on almost straight position, lower than your shoulders, not like this, something like this, to feel relaxed when you ride. And you have to be very tight here in the torso. So once again, you don't have to ride like this, because if you have a sudden drop like this, it's very bad and you can even damage your spine. So you have to have straight position with tight torso. And when you manage to have this position, you might need to have a bar risers, you might need to lift your handlebar a little bit back or front, whatever is comfortable for you. But these adjustments cost nothing. Okay, handlebar will cost you a little bit of money, but the adjustments are free. It is the same with your standing position. Standing position, when you stand on your motorcycle, when you need to stand on the pegs to ride on the dirt roads, for example, because we are talking about adventure motorcycle, which is mean that sooner or later you have to leave the asphalt roads. It might be just a normal dirt roads, not something really technical, but even so, it will be better if you can stand on the pegs. And for that reason, you have to adjust your motorcycle to be comfortable for you to stand on the pegs for at least 10-15 minutes. I'm not saying that you have to spend all day standing on the pegs, but you should be able to stand for at least 10-15 minutes, because I have seen people that did not adjust their motorcycles, and when we go together to the dirt roads, they cannot stand properly. So they make something like this, for a few minutes, and then they're tired and they need to sit again. And then a few minutes and tired and they sit again, because the motorcycle is not set properly. If you do it properly, you should be able to stand like this. Your chin is supposed to be with the level of your handlebar, and your knees need to be relaxed. They need to work like a shock absorbers. And you should be able to stay like this for at least 10-15 minutes. And then you can sit, relax, and then you can stand again. But without a proper adjustments, it is not going to be possible. And it is also, you also might need to buy a wider foot pegs to have a better comfort for this. You also need to adjust properly the clutch and brake levers, just because of the position, because they might be good when you ride on your sitting position, but when you stand on the pegs, it's different position. You should be able to use the levers even when you stand. So these are the adjustments that, or modifications that cost nothing, and you can do it before you even start buying anything. They're just free. Yeah, as I said, proper handlebar, proper sitting position, straight back, tight torso, standing position, don't lock your knees, and change the foot pegs if necessary. These changes and adjustments will improve your riding comfort much more than any expensive items that you can buy. I can guarantee that. Sometimes people, I have seen a few times, people ask me, oh, I have to change this and that, and when I show him what he needs actually to change, like a better seat, adjust the handlebar, levers, if it's necessary, drop a little bit the foot pegs. And after just a few changes, they said, oh man, it's so comfortable, now I don't need to change anything. So this might be the case for you as well, or for many people that will watch this stream. First try all of this, and then you can start buying things. All right, when you do these changes finally, ride it again for a few weeks. The best will be to make one trip with all of these adjustments, as I did around Europe. After that, you will know what your motorcycle can do, or what you can do with this motorcycle, and what you cannot do with this motorcycle, and then you can plan more changes if they are necessary. Now I will list some modifications that will make a real difference and are worth being done, but only if you can afford it and plan serious adventure trips with the motorcycle. So the modifications that I'm gonna list now, they really work. I know this from my personal experience, not only from my experience, I know from the experience of many people that I have seen on the road. But again, you have to make these modifications only if you can afford it. You don't need to borrow money or to spend the rest of the last of the money that you have to make these modifications. It is always better to keep the money and use the money for traveling instead of modifications, because you can travel with any bike, but you cannot travel without any money, if you understand what I mean. So if you can afford it, if you plan serious trips with this motorcycle, then do it. Do these modifications. And number one is suspension. So why I am recommending these modifications? Because these modifications will help you to ride at any terrain or weather conditions. These changes will help you and your motorcycle to go to different terrains much more easier. Christoph, suspension settings, preload, compression, damping. Many never touch the suspension settings because they are afraid. We'll come to this as well, Christoph. Yes, we'll come to this. I'm going to tell you a few words about it. So the number one, and this is maybe the most expensive and the most useful modification that you can make on your motorcycle, is to adjust suspension. But when I said adjust, I'm not saying only to play with the clicks. These clicks actually, playing with the clicks on your suspension is pointless if you don't have the proper springs. So in my opinion, first you have to buy a proper springs exactly for your weight. For example, I weigh 105 kilograms without any gear. With the gear, I'll be at least 115 kilograms. My Tenere, the stock Tenere, was set for rider 80 kilograms. So the difference is huge. So the stock springs that I've got on my Tenere were too soft for me. I knew that from the beginning because I have tested the bike before. I knew that because a friend of mine bought this motorcycle and I've ridden his motorcycle before. But even so, I've done 20,000 kilometers with my Tenere before I decided to make any changes. I just wanted to be sure, absolutely 200% sure, that the suspension is not enough for me. And after I hit the bottom of the forks a few times, then I realized that I definitely need stiffer springs, otherwise sooner or later I'm gonna destroy the cartridge of my forks and it will cost me much more than the springs itself. So the first thing that you have to do is to buy a springs, proper springs exactly for your weight, stiffer springs. And once again, playing with the clicks is pointless. When you don't have the springs for your weight, to adjust compression or rebound or preload, it's pointless. Preload will help a little bit, but just a little bit, and it will shorten your travel, suspension travel. So it's not gonna help you. It's not like a proper springs. So number one, suspension, the most expensive, but the most useful, and you will really see the difference immediately. After I changed the springs, it became like a new motorcycle, completely new motorcycle. If you can afford, if you have enough money, you can change even the cartridge inside. You can convert even more. Now, for example, my Tenere got Kayaba forks 43 millimeters, but if I have enough money, if I can afford, I can convert it to 48 millimeters. Will be Even better, so if you have money on suspension, just go ahead and change it if you can afford it. The next one on the list with the necessary, not necessary modifications, but modifications that really worked, is to change the muffler. In my opinion, you have to change the muffler only if you want to reduce weight or to improve the design of the motorcycle. In my opinion, some people prefer to change it even because of the sound. I don't really mind the sound. The stock exhaust of my motorcycle was fine. I don't like this loud exhaust, but it has this. It's not a technical defect. It's a wrong design. Every time when you drop the motorcycle on the right hand side, and the motorcycle actually bent the exhaust bracket, and then the exhaust itself start to scratching the swing arm. And after I did it a few times and then straightened it, this bracket, I decided that for me it will be a good idea just to change the exhaust. And that's why I changed the exhaust with the one that is stay now under the motorcycle, more yeah, like under the motorcycle. And even if I drop the motorcycle on the right hand side now, the new exhaust does not touch the ground. So muffler to reduce the weight or to improve the design. For sound, if you really like to change it for sound, change it. So now the new muffler that I've got will allow me to drop the motorcycle many times without even need to worry about it. That's why I have made this modification. And the number 3 that I have here in the list is to change your air filter. To change the air filter, there are many reasons. One of the reasons is to improve the performance of the motorcycle. In my situation, I changed the air filter with a K&N filter because of another reason. I wanted to be able on the road to take this filter, wash it, clean it, lube it, and use it again. I don't want to take a spare filter with me when I travel, and usually my trips are long, and when you have a long trip, on some stage you have to change your filter, air filter. And if you don't have a spare, it's a problem. If you go to the remote area and you cannot find spare, it's a problem. If for some reason you overflood your motorcycle, or if some water goes into the filter, you have to change it. With my filter, I can remove it, wash it, and use it again. This was the reason for me to change the air filter, not about the performance. But anyway, when you have a different exhaust, when you have a open air filter, you somehow will improve the performance of the motorcycle as well. And even that I already said, you're gonna drop even a few kilograms. So these are the changes that really works and really worth the money if you can afford it, and if you plan to use this motorcycle for many years after that. If you just bought the motorcycle for a year or two and plan to resell it after that, please don't spend any money on it, because first, you don't know what will like the new owner, and secondly, the money that you're gonna spend, I highly doubt that you will be able to take it back from the deal that you're gonna have in the future. Anyway, there are a few more modifications now in terms of protection. So everything that I'm gonna tell you here, it's not everything that you can do with your motorcycle. What I'm gonna tell you here is only what I believe that it will be useful, because the list of modifications actually is endless. I recently watched a video from a guy who was making modifications on Yamaha Tenere 700. And the list was, I don't know, probably around 20-30 different items. He bought and installed on his motorcycle everything you can imagine. Anything. So the things that I'm gonna tell you here are the things that I believe are useful. But of course, there are many more. Alexander, but only paper filters have best filtrations. Yes, Alexander, you're right. I know this very well. But I also know that if I make my paper filter wet, I will have no filtration at all unless I change it. So I know very well that K&N filter does not protect that well as a paper filter, but I told you the reasons. That's why I prefer to use it. Yeah, it's also an option that you recommend to have a paper filter and pre-filter from oil, but then the airflow is going to be not that good. If you have a paper filter and you have a pre-oiled another filter on the top is going to be just too much. You will choke your motorcycle even more. Anyway, we're gonna continue with this later. So let's now continue with the modifications that, in my opinion, are good to have on your motorcycle, and they're really worth the money. Number one, these are the hand guards. The hand guards that you can have on your handlebar to protect your clutch and brake levers. In my opinion, these are like must-have items. They cost money if you buy a proper hand guards with a aluminum plate inside that will really protect your levers. They will cost you probably around $100 or a little bit more. But if they are good quality, they will last for many years and they will protect your important levers. And I have many drops, and many times they just saved my levers. Also, when you have a good hand protectors, they are not going to protect only the levers, they will also protect your hands from the wind, from the rain, from anything. If you go to the bush, from the branches and everything, they will protect you from everything. And when you have these hand guards in combination with heated grips, it's completely different story than to have your hands on the wind, on the rain without any protection. So definitely hand guards. Number two, brush plate. If you plan to have some dirt roads or something different than normal asphalt roads, definitely you need brush plate. Most of the motorcycles are coming with or the new adventure motorcycles in this segment, usually they coming with some kind of brush plate. For example, the brush plate of my Tenere, the stock plate, was fine, was enough for, I would say, 90% of the situations that I've got. But because sometimes I really go to some a little bit sketchy terrains, I prefer to have something harder, and I wanted to have a protection on the water pump. That's why I changed my brush plate with a little bit tougher and bigger and heavier, but provides more protection. So hand guards, brush plate, definitely. So engine guards only if they are necessary, because some motorcycles are perfectly fine without any engine guards. But for some motorcycles, engine guards will be like a must. Let's say, for example, BMW GS 1100, 1200, 1250, 1300. They all definitely need engine guards, otherwise you'll destroy the cylinder heads if you drop the motorcycle. For some motorcycles, these engine guards are not necessary at all. My old Tenere, for example, I have dropped it so many times, it's never ever even scratched the engine, because the tank has these plastic protectors, and usually when it's hit the ground with the plastic protectors and the handlebar. With the new Tenere, I dropped the motorcycle a few times with engine guards and without engine guards, and the result was always the same. I understand that in specific situation it might help, but I also know that in specific situations it might not. So I prefer not to have it, but it depends on you. If you prefer to have engine guard, have it, but it's definitely not necessary, only if you need to. What is necessary, in my opinion, and it does not cost so much money, is a headlight protector. Protector of your headlight. On my Tenere, on the old and the new model, I've got this from a polycarbonate, from plastic, in front of the main headlight, because the main headlight is from glass or some kind of polycarbonate again, but it is very expensive. So if I have to change it, it will cost me like 800 to 900 euros. And this protector cost me only 10 euros. So I prefer to have it always on my motorcycle. Christoph. I saw waterboard protection for T7 and find setting the water pump even more on risk because of 600 screw down front. When you do protection, yeah, unfortunately there are many items like this, Christoph. Not only for T7, I've seen many protections that will cause more damages than real protection, but nothing we can do about it. We have to really think well before we buy anything, and the best option will be to find some kind of real experience from someone who used it in proper riding trips or something, and to give you a real feedback, not from the factory or the people just bought it and put it. I've seen many crash guards that are, the mounting points of the crash guards are the engine. So what is the idea? If I hit it hard, I will just cut a big chunk from the engine. It's pointless to me, but anyway. So in terms of protection, hand guards, bash plate, engine guard if necessary, and headlight protector. These are four very useful items. In terms of comfort, the modifications that I have and I use all the time and I highly recommend to each and every one of you, these are number one, heated grips. Priceless, man, priceless. If I have to say to someone to make a modification for his motorcycle and he said, and if he asks me, please tell me only one modification that really works, I'll say heated grips. That's it. Even if you ride in the summer, heated grips is something that you really need. If you are lucky enough and if you are rich enough to have a motorcycle with stock heated grips, very good. But in most of the motorcycles, especially these budget options, you have to install it by yourself. And this is number one modification that I will recommend to everyone to put it on his motorcycle. Heated grips will cost you around $100. Model from Oxford will work fantastic, but they will make a huge difference in your riding comfort. And the second one that I use all the time, this is 3D mesh. 3D mesh that you can put on the top of your seat. It will provide this almost like a half centimeter cushion, air cushion between your ass and the seat. And they really works, and honestly guys, they cost nothing. You can buy 1 meter piece for $10–15 on AliExpress, for example. Alexander Marek, why heated grips and not heated gloves? Don't need to carry around heated grips for half of the season. Because Alexander, I have learned something from my experience that heated gloves are something maybe good and maybe work even better because they will heat you from all sides, but then you will depend on the batteries. And what I have learned from my experience that you run out of batteries when you really need them. Heated grips on my motorcycle are there. If I want to use them, I use them. If I don't want to use them, I will never turn it on. But they use the power from the motorcycle. I don't need to think about batteries. I have enough batteries that I have to carry. My telephone, my cameras, my power banks, and everything that I have to charge every day. So I don't want to think for another one, heated gloves. Even though they are better option because they will heat better from all sides, I still prefer to have heated grips. Okay, now in terms of let's go with the rest of the modifications. For comfort, I already said heated grips and 3D mesh. Now, in terms of electronics, I'm not a geek guy. I don't really like to have all of these cables and different things on my handlebar. I prefer my handlebar to be clean. The only thing that I will have there, it's my telephone on the dashboard, on the top of the dashboard. And I have very simple mount, bought from AliExpress, very cheap, on which one I can have my telephone, my second telephone, if I need a GPS to find a specific address. That's it. And another modification that you can make if you don't have it already, because most of the new motorcycles already come with this, this is 12-volt power sockets, if you don't have it. But I said most of the new motorcycles are already coming with it. If you don't have it, this is maybe the one modification that includes cables and electronics that I will recommend to have it. Is the seat mesh actually working in the trousers and waterproof or not all over the better seat? Yes, Alexander, it really works. Believe me, I know this from the last 5 years. I ride only with this 3D mesh. And 2 years ago in Turkey, my 3D mesh was cut on big 2-3 holes. And I decided, okay, the holes are too big now. It is better to remove this mesh. And I cut it and threw it away. And I sat on the motorcycle. And in the first 2 hours, I said, man, now I'm fucked. That's big the difference is. It costs nothing, but it really helps. So buy it, it costs nothing. They work. Absolutely, I can guarantee. So back to the electronics. I recommend to have 12-volt power socket if you don't have it already. And if you really want to have more things, voltmeter. Voltmeter is a useful gadget that again will cost you almost nothing, but it will help you to keep monitoring your motorcycle while you ride. Monitoring your electric system, especially if you have an old model. So it's good to know that your motorcycle recharge your battery all the time and everything is all right. If you have a voltmeter, you can spot the problems on time. If you see that the voltage start to dropping from 14.14 to 13 or 12, you will know that sooner or later your battery will finish and you will have enough time to react and maybe go to the first service garage, even change your battery or change the installation, change your recharge relay, whatever is fault, you can change it. You can spot the problem on time. For example, once I was riding somewhere around the Pyrenees. In Spain it was heavy rain, and during this heavy rain I saw that my voltmeter started to show like 15, 16 to 17 volts. And I said, man, something is wrong. So I stopped, and the whole charging relay was dumped everywhere. So I unplug it, clean it, lube it a little bit, dry it, and plug it again, and it started working normally. But if I haven't got the voltmeter, I will continue riding like this, and I can even burn my installation or damage computer or something like that. So it's good to have this monitoring. So if you want to have some kind of gadgets, at least put a voltmeter. No more. Now, I will tell you some, I would like to finish everything now, guys, and I will give you. Yes, there are also voltmeters that are included in 12 volts sockets. True, but I wanted to have differently, because otherwise you have to keep this always in the 12 volt, and when it's raining, the rain is going in and stuff like that. So now, guys, just I will tell you a few sentences that I hope will help you to make your final conclusions. Please listen it well and try to absorb it, because they might sound like cliches to you now, but they really are really, how I have to say, important words that you have to remember. Number one is, the lighter you are, the easier it's going to be. You might not believe me, you don't need to believe me, but this is the reality. The lighter you are, the easier it's going to be. Weight always matters. The second is, lack of some skills could be compensated with better traction. I hope that you understand what I mean by this. If you don't have the proper skills to control your motorcycle, you can compensate that if you have a better traction, which is mean that if you don't have a proper skills to ride on the dirt roads, it will be beneficial for you if you have a proper dirt roads tires. Because when you have a better traction, the lack of skills will be compensated. But when you don't have the proper skills, and when you don't have the proper tires, and you go to the dirt roads, then it's a recipe for disaster. I hope that you understand what I mean. The next one, the heavier the bike is, the better the tires need to be. Once again, the heavier the bike is, the better the tires need to be. If you go on the dirt roads with heavy bike, with street tires, again, it's a recipe for disaster. The heavier the motorcycle is, the more aggressive the tires need to be on the dirt roads. Otherwise, you will have problems. I mentioned twice or three times these dirt roads because we are talking about adventure motorcycles. And adventure motorcycles usually means that sooner or later you have to leave asphalt roads, and here and there have at least some kind of dirt road connections. And once again, the heavier the bike is, the better the tires need to be. They will provide more traction, and the lack of some skills could be compensated with better traction. I hope that you connect the dots and understanding what I mean. And the next one, the better the tires are, the faster they will finish. And this is the truth. Maybe not so comfortable truth, but this is the reality. The better the tires are, the faster they will finish. And when I hear someone saying, oh, I really love these tires, they lasted 25,000 kilometers. Man, if the tire lasted 25,000 kilometers, that means they are more made from plastic than rubber. The tire is supposed to keep your motorcycle on the road, on the asphalt. If they don't provide enough traction, they're not gonna wear that fast. If they provide a good traction, if they stick good to the asphalt, that means they will wear very fast. So the better the tires are, the faster they will finish. That's why I like this TKC 80 Continental. And everyone complained that they finish very fast. Yes, they finish fast. They finish for 7,000-8,000 kilometers. But for these 7,000-8,000 kilometers, they provide enough traction on and off road. And I'm happy with this. The better the tires are, the faster they will finish. And the next one, the more things you have on the bike, especially with electronics, the bigger the risk of having problems on the road will be. The more things you add in your motorcycle, the more you will compromise your electric system and all of these connections here and there, and you will risk to have problems on the road. In my opinion, the motorcycle will last much longer if you just keep it stock. Don't cut any cables, don't add any electronic devices, just leave it as it is. This is my opinion. You don't need to listen to me. And now my final words. Modification is another word of customization, and it does not to be the same for everyone. Don't follow trends and do only what works for you. I hope that you understand the meaning of this phrase. Modification is another word of customization, which is mean that everyone supposed to do what is good for him, not to listen others or to follow trends or to buy things that he might never need it. I know very well what is good for me, and I already have done it on my motorcycle. And when someone says, why don't you have this and that? Because I don't need it. Why you have this? Because I need it. Because this is modification, customization is the same. So that's everything that I wanted to say, guys, for today. My list is finished here. Now I will give you time if you want to add something, or if you have any questions, please go ahead. I'm here to help, of course, if I can. Thank you very much for your patience. It was a long speech, 50 minutes. Richard, radiator guard and front fender extender are good for me. Fender extender stops too much radiator back. Yes, Richard, absolutely. Fender extender, it's something that I always had. It's worked perfectly for me. Radiator guard, I have the stock radiator guards on my Tenere, which are made from plastic, and they have just a slightly angled like this. I don't like this aluminum on plastic, very, very deep and with small holes guards. I prefer the original plastic, just with angles that allows enough airflow to go in, but still protect. And you're right, the fender extender always protect you, just to keep most of the mud going into the radiator. Now on my trip to Magadan, on some stage we were riding together with a Russian guy. He was with a Kawasaki KLR with a high mud guard. And because he hasn't got this fender extender, his radiator just clogged with mud so badly after 2 days. So we need to stop and clean his radiator, because the motorcycle started to overheat. And then we checked mine, and mine was fine, because I have this extender, exactly what you said a few minutes ago. Why, dear guy, modifications are like bike choice. You buy what you need. Why I keep my, yeah, absolutely. Modifications are like bike choice, like wife choice. You take what you need and use it. And yes, you keep your DR because you know very well this machine. Ogi, my favorite route through Bulgaria. There are many, Ogi. I cannot tell you just like that one. Many. But the favorite part of Bulgaria, of course, is Rhodope mountain. Alexander Marek, what are your favorite air plugs? Do you even use them for a long, steady rides? Alexander, I have my air plugs with me. I always carry it with me. The favorite type that I've got, they looks like a pine tree, like this, and they're from rubber and they stick very well underneath. I don't use them much. I can use them only if I know that I'm gonna spend many hours on the highway. Other than that, I never use them. They make me uncomfortable if I use them all the time. And now, because I'm filming my trips, it's very bizarre when I need to talk, and I need to talk in the helmet, but I don't hear myself very well, and I cannot control the level of my voice. That's why I almost never use it. Only if I need to spend, like, let's say 3, 4 to 5 hours on the highway with high speed, more than 120, then I can use it. But other than that, not. Richard, a screen if your bike hasn't got one. Yeah, definitely. Windscreen protects not only from the wind, it also protects from the rain, from the snow, from the cold if necessary. So definitely have one. Even small windscreen will protect more than nothing. So it's definitely something that you should have. But most of the new adventure motorcycles, because they are some kind of adventure motorcycles designed to travel, they come with a good windscreen. Absolutely, Ogi. Rhodope is wonderful. Christoph, Have aluminum handguards and I worry about the T7 brake hose connection. You don't need to worry about it, Christoph. I never heard any problems with this brake hose connection. Alexander Marek, windscreens can also protect from noise on air director correctly. True, true, it's from noise as well. Good night, Richard. Thank you very much for coming, Richard. Thank you very much for your comments. You're always here, always on time. Send my regards to your wife and see you next Sunday. Oh, Nikolai, you've been here, but you never say hello. Oh, bad for you. Thank you very much, Nikolai. My pleasure, Ogi. See you next week, guys. Alexander Marek, how you find city section if you rise? I always scare my way because of the traffic, but perhaps you have some good advice for driving cities with less tension. Well, Alexander, I never worried from the traffic in the cities, never at all, because you know with a motorcycle it's always easy. Also, I've been to many busy towns around the world and I've seen many bad traffics, and now at the moment I did not even worry about intersections and the traffic. After my trip to Pakistan, India, Nepal and Bangladesh, I said to myself that I will never ever complain from traffic because usually here in Europe we don't have any idea what traffic means. We just don't know, and we never knew. My pleasure, Big D. No problem, Nikolai. You can always stop. Yeah. I have gone, okay, YDR. I have gone back to standard exhaust on my DR for a few reasons, but weight saving is not one. 2 kilogram saving is not really worth the effort. I will agree with you, Bill. For some motorcycles, it is better just don't touch the exhaust, because most of the new motorcycles, the catalytic converter is an exhaust. If you remove it, it causes different problems. So sometimes it's better to leave as it is. And even so, I already told you, I believe that the motorcycle will last many more kilometers if you leave it stock as it is. Any modification that you can make will always compromise the longevity of the motorcycle. Thank you very much for adding this, Bill. Alright guys, that's everything for this week. We'll continue next week. Thank you to all of you for the support. Thank you very much for coming. Yeah, after some modification I've done the mine motorbike, small changes except handlebar and stock parts. Okay. Thank you very much for coming, guys. See you next week. Have a wonderful week. Bye bye.